So, hi everyone. Welcome to another episode of TezTalks. I'm your host, Marissa Trew, and I'm joined with my new fellow co-host, Stu Elmes, who you might actually recognize from TezTalks Live. So, hey, Stu.
Hi, everybody.
And then I'd also like to introduce this episode's very esteemed guest, Brian David Marshall. He's the president and publisher of InterPop, which is a digital fandom of comic, gaming, and collectible NFTs. So first of all, welcome, Brian.
Thanks so much. Hey, everybody. Glad to be here.
So I think we should kick off this discussion by asking you to share what exactly InterPop is beyond my very basic explanation and a little bit about its mission.
Sure. Trying to calibrate my story length. But InterPop is a company, that evolved through collaborating with Kathleen Brightman to make a collectible card game out of where every game piece was an NFT. It was something that I started working on with Kathleen and Zvi Moshowitz and Alan Comer a couple of years ago. And then at some point we came aboard at TQ Tezos to form a company called InterPop. And InterPop is, in addition to building this trading card game, which is called the Emergence TCG, we really became pretty excited about all the different things that you could do with NFTs beyond simply, an image, right? Like sort of the old chestnut criticism of NFTs, right? That, oh, it's just a JPEG, right? And we really became interested in the idea of the ownership of your digital assets, right? As people who played games online and shoveled money after money into cards that we don't really own, and fans of digital comics who, again, just kind of bulldoze money into a big hole where we buy comics that we don't own. It just became obvious to us that there was an opportunity to give people that missing component from this digital experience that is so integral to the physical experience, which is collectability. And that's one of the things we're able to do with NFTs. So, in addition to this trading card game called Emergence TCG, which is set in this pretty vibrant superhero universe, we decided to also tell some stories set in that universe with comics, working with some big name creators from across the comic book industry, and from working with Rachel Gluckstern, who was the editor for the Batman family of titles at DC Comics, and she comes to us as with a wealth of experience in terms of corralling and coordinating this great talent. Decided to put together a line of NFT comics, put together this trading card game, all on the Tezos network, as well as a what I guess I would call a hyper casual gaming platform called Play with Brio, where people can play skill-based games heads up against each other for real Tez. Soon, I promise. And then, as we were doing all of this, we also realized that we needed a marketplace for everything. And so we created something called InterPop, which is our marketplace, and is there's a couple things on there right now. We're going to be releasing a lot more stuff in the coming months, as well as unlocking a peer-to-peer component for our marketplace. So that's kind of what we've been doing for the last year.
That's awesome. Like preparing to talk to you, I looked into your history a little bit, as I do on with all the guests that we have on the TezTalks Live. And it was literally like a list of my favorite things over the years that you've been involved in, which made me really excited to talk to you. But equally exciting, I think, is like some of the entertainment products that you've worked with have transcended from being really niche market things into kind of the common pop culture consciousness, which I think is really exciting for this particular space right now. Can you tell us a little bit about your career journey up to this point?
Sure. when I was a teenager, I decided I really wanted to be in the comic book industry. I was obsessed with comics. And I sort of meticulously, we have a comic book cover coming up for the Emergence where, the crime blotter has his murder board, with strings and pins and all these. I mean, I had like some detailed, brilliant mind plan to get into the comic book industry, and managed to do that. And once I started working kind of as an intern at a comic book company, I got more and more opportunities to do stuff. And eventually, while I was still in high school, started my own comic book publishing company, which was a company called Eternity Comics. And Eternity Comics was a place where we launched a lot of really successful comic book careers. The company eventually became a company that was called Malibu Entertainment, which put out a lot of really amazing comic books over the years. And, it was a great experience. It was a lot of great lessons learned and a lot of amazing talent that passed through the doors there that are people who are still in the industry today. And, in fact, some of whom still working with to this day. So that was really exciting. Have done a bunch of other things in comics over the years. I was the editor-in-chief for a company called Crusade Entertainment, which did a book called She, The Way of the Warrior. I did a little bit of writing there. I had a chance over the years to write for Marvel Comics and wrote a book called The Creptacular B-Sides, which was about 3 really kind of like slacker teenage superheroes who have these really kind of amazing powers, but they're just kind of somehow bummed out about them and don't really know how to use them effectively and don't really kind of expect to be famous superheroes without putting any of the work or the organizational stuff is into that, and kind of are just really kind of misfits. And that was a lot of fun. I also got to write Captain America while I was at Marvel, which was an amazing experience. One of my favorite characters, one of those characters that was really such a big part of my childhood. To get a chance to write it was amazing. And then from comics, I somehow transitioned into trading card games and have been very involved in the Magic the Gathering community for really since almost the start of the game, both as a player, as a tournament organizer, and as an esports personality over the years, doing a bunch of different things, writing a regular column about the game, which led me into game design, where I did a bunch of digital games over the years, a bunch of physical board games over the years. And, I don't know, all of it sort of, all of those experiences sort of combined is, it's like, that moment when you're talking to someone about NFTs and they're like, come on, right? They're just so skeptical and they're so like, this is nonsense. I'm just not having it. And there's this moment where I was that person, right? I was that skeptic. And I don't remember what Zvi, who's one of the who's the lead game designer for the Emergence TCG. I don't remember what he said exactly, but I got this idea and I made that connection between what we were trying to do and that experience of owning my cards from playing Magic, selling those cards or trading those cards, but and knowing, oh, this card, this card right here, I got this card at this event and I played it in this deck and I played against this person. And I was like, oh, that's really powerful. And that's just completely missing from the traditional digital games experience.
And so, some of those cards ended up being pretty impressive investments, right?
Well, some of those Magic cards, yeah. I mean, certainly for whoever bought them from me over the years.
But I think that's such an interesting point that you raise, because it is something that we've discussed before on TezTalks, which is that notion of the perception of value of something within a digital space. And as we go increasingly digital, I think people are slowly but surely warming up to the idea of that idea that you can't attach value to something that you can't physically hold. And if we're looking at something like blockchain technology, where the entire history of a digital item is completely archived in a way that we're almost creating digital artifacts from now that we didn't have before. So I'm curious to find out how you think, Emergence specifically fits into this NFT space, and then how they're evolving in your mind.
Sure. So when you say emergence, you mean sort of this this bigger picture of what we're doing with this superhero universe, or do you mean specifically the trading card game?
Specifically the trading card game, in terms of the value that we're attaching to it.
Sure. Well, I think right now one of the big values that we're attaching with it is that you own your cards, right? So again, I can't stress enough how vital that is to a vibrant game. You see this time and time again with games where you know, if you want to try to play the game for free, or even if you put a little bit of money into a game, and that money only travels in one direction. You only ever give money to one person, right? One entity, the company that's making that game. And you just don't have any liquidity to move around and experiment and try the game. You are really kind of forced to, like, okay, I'm going to spend $50 on this game, right? That's my budget. My wife's going to kill me. I got $50. That's all I'm spending on this game. And you got to really do some research, and you got to find the optimal deck, and you got to grind a little bit and get whatever, virtual currency you need within the game. And you get that deck. And if that deck stinks, if that deck is no good, you really have to start from scratch and do it all over again. And it's a very frustrating experience. And it's not one that gives you a lot of opportunities to feel very smart. Nobody feels smart when they kind of hit the okay purchase button in a free-to-play game. I'm just sorry, right? Like it's not. And we want to give people a chance to feel smart. We want to give people a chance to go, wait a minute, this card's 50 cents? Are people crazy? This card's fantastic. This card is so powerful. People just don't even know. And have that opportunity to, I'm going to buy a bunch of this card.
Yeah.
I'm going to play this. I'm going to stream this deck. I'm going to take this deck to whatever event. I'm going to win. I'm going to totally, have this disruptive effect on the metagame. And then people are going to want this card. Right. And that's a chance to feel really smart. But also, if you make the wrong choice, you can always sell your cards back. That's one of the things that we've built into the game, is we really are not looking to be exploitive of people at all, right? If you buy a card and we have this bonding curve pricing system that I will not attempt to mangle here, but you will be able to read about it on the emergencetcg.com website next week. We'll always take your cards back from you for very, very close to the purchase price of what you paid for them on the bonding curve. Now, if you go and you take that card and that card wins a world championship, and that card was owned by, former Magic the Gathering world champion Paulo Vitor Damarosa, one of our game designers, and has leveled up because it's just done all these amazing things, right? It's like, this card has dealt over 100,000 points of damage over the course of its life. That's pretty cool. Yeah. We won't ascribe that value to the card, right? We will, but you might say, hey, I'm going to take this card out to the secondary market. And by the way, here's a card from this deck, verified. It won this event. It has done this many things. It's got this much chrome on it because I'm pretty good at this game and I've done all these cool things with it. And I don't know. I think that's really exciting.
How do you push past hesitancy from people who are used to having a card they can hold in their hand, or a comic book they can put in a box, or a painting they could hang on their wall, and have them understand the value of these types of assets in this context?
I think that we are on a road towards most people understanding that, which is going to happen in the next few years. But I agree that that's a real challenge, especially for the products that we're building. I think part of the way you do that is by showing people all the cool things that happen because you own this. So, for example, to just shift over to our comic books for a second, if you own an Emergence Universe comic book NFT, you are entitled to vote on certain outcomes that will happen in the comic book. You get to actually shape the story. We say control the fate of a universe, and that's really true, because at the end of this first arc of stories, characters are going to die, and that's going to be determined by people who own the NFTs. We'll let anyone who wants to read our comics read our comics. We make them available, free to read. But if you actually, I don't know, we think we're telling great stories. If you become invested in our characters, invested in our stories, and you actually want to have some role in this fan governance over what's happening, where people travel in time, what covers we use on upcoming issues, hey, here's 2 character designs for a character that's going to debut next issue. Which design do you want us to go with?
And if you're a fan, why wouldn't you want that?
Yes, absolutely.
That's amazing.
But I do also think that that's exactly where the question that we raised earlier of how do we generate this actual sensation or understanding or feeling of value in a digital space, and basically empowering the people who are following these storylines to actually have a voice. And it's that entire governance mechanism, as it were, that suddenly they almost have a democratic vote in the outcome of something that they love and that they cherish. And that power is going to create that sensation of value. But the other thing that I was thinking about with terms of this entire space, whether it's comic books, whether it's trading card games, or just like online gaming generally, is that these were activities that were typically reserved for, kind of the quintessential American teenager, the kid who stuck around in his basement, didn't really go out very much, just had a few class schoolmates, and was totally immersed in these fantasy worlds, right? But do you think that there's now, because there's this shift in a collective mindset, that there's also a shift in the persona of who's getting involved in these kinds of activities?
Oh,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Staying fairly niche.
No, sure. I think comic books, games, board games, I think that has really crossed the line into mainstream, into mainstream. And I think also, you're seeing, so historically, those hobbies were sort of really restricted by physical location too, right? And for whatever reason, comic stores became this kind of like, look, there's no other way to say it, like kind of like this male enclave. This sort of teenage character that you describe, and that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because it becomes an unwelcoming environment in some cases to expand your audience, right? It's something comics have struggled with at the direct sales level for decades, right? How do we get more women into comic stores? How do we get more diverse audiences into comic book stores? And part of the struggle that you have there is that it becomes, sort of self-perpetuating. And I think that we've seen some real disruption to that classic struggle. And I think telling stories with more types of characters, telling stories in this really accessible digital medium, really lets people come. It doesn't have to be as destination. We can put these stories in people's paths. We can put these stories on Instagram. We can put these stories on Twitter. We can put these stories into Discord. We can put them on our website. We can email them to you. So I think that there has been a big shift in what the average comic book fan looks like. I think there are a lot more people interested in this medium. And right now, I think one of the mistakes that people make sometimes when they talk about comics is, confusing the medium with the genre, right? And so we're telling stories right now in the superhero genre, but we're very much in the medium of comics, and we're going to have a lot more content that comes out over the course of the following year from our line that is not going to just be restricted to these, Emergence universe characters, right? We're really excited about these characters. We're really excited about these stories, but we have some pretty exciting partners lined up, some pretty exciting licenses lined up. And there's a lot of really cool comics that I think really break the mold of what people think comics are, and are going to be really, kicking down some doors.
And sort of to that end, you've assembled a pretty impressive team with InterPop, right? You've got Hall of Fame Magic the Gathering players. You've got people who are involved in the creation of Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! You've got some really amazing comic book artists. What was your process in assembling the InterPop team?
Well, the core team that was working on the TCG was myself, Zvi, and Alan. Zvi Moshowitz and Alan Comer, who are both Hall of Fame Magic players. As we started looking at the task ahead of us, really looked for some people with great product experience. So one of the first people I hired was someone named Trew Nolasco, who was working at Wizards of the Coast and was a global brand manager for the Transformers TCG, and someone I had worked with, maybe a decade before on a number of licensed board games. And I was someone I knew had the, chops to build a product, right? It's not just, there's this really interesting balance to me when you come into this NFT space of like all of this kind of arcane knowledge around, smart contracts and blockchain and all these different protocols and upgrade. And that's all like one packet of knowledge. But then there's also this real world experience of building a product and making it appealing to people. So you asked earlier, Melissa, I feel like I missed this. You talked about our mission, right? Like, what's our mission? And part of our mission is, for me, is I want our products to be the first blockchain products that the bulk of our audience try, right? We want to be their first blockchain experience. We want people to create their first wallet. We want people to buy their first NFT. We want people to engage in some sort of fan governance and community that's unlocked by blockchain. And we want that to all happen for the first time for people. And we think, people will say, "Oh no, don't you think the NFT bubble is going to burst?" Blah, blah, blah. And you could tell my reaction to that by my imitation. But I also don't think we've even dipped our wand in the bubbles. You know what I mean? Like, this is just going to be as and one of the things that's so attractive to me about Tezos, right, is the low gas prices. This constantly evolving protocol that's just becoming more efficient and operating more cleanly and more powerfully all the time. Is that we can keep these things at a price point where they're exciting and interesting, and people are able to make that leap without it seeming like, should we put a portion of our retirement into this, animated dog, right? Right. I would much rather have, 10,000, $10 purchases than $10,000 purchases.
Yeah, I think that accessibility when interacting with any kind of blockchain game, any kind of blockchain transaction is going to be key into taking the perception of it as a bubble into something that is very much kind of a reality or a technology that's here to stay. And I think, exactly as you said, it's about creating this, we use the term mass adoption, but just in general participation, people interacting in a space where it's very straightforward. They don't feel like they're going to lose their life savings, because it's not every transaction is a gamble. And that's, I think, is where we're getting a lot of the NFT hype and the NFT bubble discourse, is around the fact that you're about to drop thousands of dollars on a JPEG or a GIF versus, $2 to buy a skin in a game or to buy an asset like a digital trading card. But that being said, in terms of creating this accessibility, like how big is this InterPop community so far? I mean, it's just started. Like, what is the fan base? Where do they come from? What do they look like? Who are they?
Well, there's a certain amount of anonymity about blockchain, but I can tell you that and by the way, I should apologize. I think I said Melissa before, and I just crossing my wires with someone I was talking to earlier, and I apologize, Marissa. My bad. I'm replaying it. I'm like, oh God, I did it. No.
I've done it too.
So I'm so sorry. I know. Well, but see, I know.
Don't worry.
People spell Brian with a Y to me all the time, and I hate it. So I just, it's unforgivable. I apologize.
No, apology. Fine.
I could tell you that. So our first issue of the 9, which was an NFT that we gave away, right? Talking about that accessibility. We gave away close to 30,000 copies of that comic book. We of that number, more than half of those people were creating a wallet for the first time. Certainly, at least in the Tezos ecosystem. So that's really exciting, right? And really powerful. And we see all of our numbers just going up all the time on people engaging, talking, buying both our open editions, which are relatively low priced, and again aimed at getting people to be engaged with the universe, as well as buying some more high priced limited editions where because that is also part of this collectible aspect of things, and a big part of the real world in comic books right now is variant covers and limited editions, and so we've been doing that with each comic, and we definitely underestimated how quickly the last batch would sell out. All three of Emergence, all three variants of Emergence Presents #1. I think the first one took a little bit more than a day to sell out, but the last two first editions sold out almost immediately. So really, really exciting. We're trying to convert both NFT people and blockchain people to become comic book people, but we're also trying to get over this big hurdle with the comic book industry of getting people into this NFT space, right? There's a big process of education there, and we're working on that, and we're trying to keep our entry points very low, trying to make sure, again, give people plenty of opportunities to read these comics and to become, very much following a model that, is very successful, even though I was slagging on it earlier, free to play games, but giving that people that opportunity to become invested in what we're doing, and care about these characters, and then want to have a say in their care, right? Because ultimately they are going to be choosing which ones live and die. So there's a lot at stake. I know for me that is certainly something that would prompt me to hit the button and buy a copy.
So can people play the game right now?
So they cannot. So Emergence TCG is the most ambitious piece of the 4 things that we've built. It is
Sure.
a huge feat of blockchain engineering. It's a huge feat of just game engineering, and then a huge feat of getting those 2 things completely integrated. But we are going to, in fact, I just had a call about this. We are absolutely going to be in a closed alpha before the end of this year. We expect early part of November is currently what we're looking at. And that's making sure like all of our economies work, making sure all of the game pieces work, making sure we're able to do all the things we want everything to do. And then the plan is for the first quarter of 2022 to go into a some kind of open beta. So
very exciting.
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's
I can't imagine the scale of a complex card game. It must be quite the task.
Yeah, and and again, because you're doing stuff, there's not really this opportunity to change cards once they're out there. One of the appeals of a digital card game is you can always nerf something. You can always change it and make it different. And we don't want to do that. We want to make sure we're getting our cards right. We want to make sure that if you buy something, it's what you thought you were buying, right? And
that you're not going to have to ban it down the road because it's too powerful, or
right. And and honestly, if we ban something, we'll have to buy something back, right? Like that's kind of what it'll come down to. But and as game designers, if you're not getting something right up to the line of banning, you're probably not making
those are the best ones.
Yeah. So sometimes you'll fall over and land on the other side of that line. And we know that will happen, but we're working really hard to make sure everything works together, makes sense. We've got some of the cards that you've seen banned in Magic over the years have been banned because of the people working with us on our team as players. They went and found the most broken decks and the most broken ways to implement those cards. And our team is fantastic. And they're making a great game, and it's really fun. It really is fun. It's I don't think it feels like any other trading card game out there, right? There's obviously some things that are going to be familiar, and some things that if you've played card games, you'll say, oh yeah, I know how something like this works. But it's something new. It's something different, and it plays completely differently than anything else I've ever seen. So I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I think what's amazing is how blockchain gaming's very much been in the spotlight for, say, the last 2 months or so, and I'm willing to bet that interest in the space is going to carry on through to the end of the year. But it feels like Tezos hasn't really kind of come out and presented its primary offerings just yet in terms of its key signature games that are going to exist on chain. But I feel like there's almost this bubbling undercurrent, and then 2022 things are going to kick off. Everyone's just kind of in planning mode. There's a bit of a stealth to it.
I mean, I can tell you that we have pretty rabid followers of our progress on this game, and it is probably too stealthy development for their tastes. But what we are doing, and I don't know when this airs versus when we're recording, but in the third week of September, we are going to be launching a website that is dedicated entirely to the TCG. And it is going to be a development blog, and it is going to be a strategy blog, and it's going to be, and we're basically going to really let people look under the hood of the game, see what we're doing. We're going to be creating videos to show people how to play the game. We're going to be showing off all the cool art that we're doing. We're going to be talking about the economics of the game and really digging into that with Zvi Moshowitz, who again is lead designer and is a brilliant economist in his own right, and just sharing that progress with people and trying to be as transparent about where the game is and what we're working towards as we gear up to let people really into our playground and start getting on the rides. So we want to prepare people. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah,
and the site's
super
gorgeous.
Exciting.
The site's also gorgeous. I'm really excited about
I think we're all going to be kind of keeping our eyes peeled for it. But then pulling away from Emergence for a moment, and I want to touch on play with Brio, because I feel like that's sort of a bit of an underdog in that people have a sense of its existence, but they're isn't as much hype built around it per se. So can you tell us a bit more about that?
Sure. Play with Brio is a skill gaming platform. And so skill gaming is any game that two people can play with identical starting conditions, where they can compete heads up in a game of skill. You can, say, spend 2 Tez to get into a game, and I could spend 2 Tez to get into a game, and we could play a game of solitaire with a similarly stacked, identically stacked deck of cards and a timer. And we play asynchronously. We both try to complete our solitaire as quickly as possible and as most efficiently as possible. And there's a scoring system there. And when we've both completed our game, the higher score will win. What did I say? 2 Tez that will basically win 4 Tez minus some fees.
Okay.
And the game, you can actually go to Play with Brio right now, and you will give you some in-game currency. So we're in like open beta right now. You can go there. You can play solitaire. You can start honing your skills and learning how to play more efficiently and what you need to do. But we did a brief test with Tez game, so people have played this game for Tez. But it will be, I'm guessing we're about 2 weeks out from turning on games for Tez. And so the reason that it's kind of, this is something that we just haven't put any marketing towards yet, because we're waiting to have these games turned on. And this is, very much a classic hyper casual gaming experience where you really just are, blasting all of these SEO opportunities to get people come and play solitaire and play. We're going to actually, almost like weeks after we turn on the Tez games again, we're going to have a second game in that platform, which is a head-to-head variant on 21 or blackjack, and then we have more games in the pipeline behind that. It is a very, very popular category of game, and we're going to give people an opportunity to experience it. Playing to play and win cryptocurrency, which we're really excited about.
So it's
Blackjack
basically another.
Tez.
Yeah, it's another kind of this. And I've spoken a lot about this before on this podcast, but it's a new format for the play to earn model that's obviously taken the world by storm, especially out here in Asia.
Absolutely. I mean, you really need to win a lot probably to earn. I think this is this is definitely I see this. We play some games in staging, and we'll go up against each other, and it's definitely bragging rights, and there's a little bit of there's a little bit on the line, which is exciting, but if you want to play to earn, you're gonna need to do really well. But I'll tell you, skill gaming is something that exists out in the world in fiat, and there are people who are professional solitaire players. There are people who
kind of
go ahead.
I see it kind of like in a weird way, a cross between the old school computer games that we all grew up on Windows 98 and were obsessed with for 12 hours a day, meets beating your friends at hoops in the arcade over a few extra little arcade tokens so that you can win that plush teddy bear. Like it's kind of this merging of these old world but very nostalgic and timeless games, and encouraging people to kind of get back in the space and involved and remember that fun.
Yeah, absolutely. These are these games have been enduring classics for a reason, right? It's just and when you can add a little bit of rivalry and competition and a little bit of currency to the equation, it's there's a whole new level that they can go to. So yeah, we're really excited about that, and then I think you're gonna see us talking and hyping and promoting that everywhere over the last quarter of this year.
So I mean, given the span of this conversation, like we've covered a fair amount of ground, but I think the thing that also connects all these dots beyond blockchain is how it's also kind of coming together to create the other big buzzword of the last quarter, which is the metaverse, right?
Sure.
And so how do you see these pieces coming together? Like, how do you see this community sort of growing online in a digital world where they can actually interact? Like, is there going to be, cross-game pollination? Is there going to be different ways people can engage between games? How does it look to you?
I mean, certainly at the most simple implementation of that, right? You're talking about avatars and PFPs and those kind of things, and that's certainly something that is on our roadmap for these characters and for this world. And we very much expect to have Emergence avatars in Play with Brio, right? Comic book card backs on the cards. We expect to be able to do a lot of those opportunities for people to find and identify with characters in the IP, right? Like, I think a big part of this for us is also this intellectual property set around the Emergent universe, where you find people will identify with a character or a power set. The classic, would you rather you have the ability to be invisible, or would you like to fly, right? People fall into these different psychographics around superheroes, and we think there'll be a lot of opportunities for people to experience these characters and take them around to a lot of different applications that we're building right now, and to be able to identify yourself on social media and to say, I love the character Moxie, and I voted for her to do this in the comic. And I don't know, it's to some extent, I think it is going to be, the metaverse is this really messy term that takes into a lot of things, and I think when we talk about metaverse, we talk about fandom, really, and so really we're going to give people opportunities to engage. We're going to give people content to engage with. We're going to give them tools to express themselves with. But I think we're going to let them very much tell us what that fandom is going to look like, what they want to see out of that fandom, and that's how that metaverse is going to express itself for us.
Well, if there's one thing that we've learned, it's that if it's cool, people will engage with it, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
We're just kind of getting to the point of wrapping up here. I wanted to check in with you if you've got anything else that you wanted to get out there before we wrap up here.
No, I mean, I can give you the website rundown, right? Go to interpopcomics.com. You can, again, really no catch here. You can go read our comics for free. You can see which comics are coming out. You can't read them the week they come out. You can't vote on anything unless you buy the open edition. They're generally around $9 US, 1 to 2 Tez, depending on, fluctuations in the price of Tez. So interpopcomics.com is great for that. We're going to you can go to interpop.io and see all of our different products that we're building. Minterpop.com is our marketplace, which is soon going to include a peer-to-peer marketplace. And we're going to be, that's also a place where we will be selling some additional promo cards for the Emergence TCG for people who want to feel like they have something special early on and sort of this proof of fandom that they were here with the game very early on in the process. Interpop.io, and then emergencetcg.com is going to be another destination if you want to really follow the progress from the game. And I can tell you that when I engage with the Tezos community, people ask me all the time about the game. They want to know where the game is. We had a false start with it at Coast, but now here at Interpop, it is very much full steam ahead. It is very close to being out in the world, and we will. Some fans will get a chance to experience it towards the end of this year, and then first quarter of next year, people will be playing it, and we will be attempting to, put some pretty cool attributes onto our cards by winning some tournaments and doing some cool stuff. So that's kind of where we're at, and I think I covered everything.
Right. So super exciting things ahead. I think you've given us a great rundown of all the places that we can find it, so no one has any excuse to say that they missed it. This was truly this was a fantastic conversation. So I just really want to thank you so much for sharing your insights, and hopefully we'll have you back on again.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Marissa and Stu. This was fantastic. I had a lot of fun talking to you. I hope I can come back and talk more about stuff as we get closer.
We hope so too.
Mode.
Be awesome to talk to you again once the game is live.
All right, and hopefully Absolutely. I find myself out in Vancouver and we can go to Miku, Stu.
By all means.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thanks.